So today we're going to talk about how to invest in apartment buildings or invest in apartments, right? Um, I know this might seem, if you're newer, this might seem early, but you have to start thinking about where you want to end up, right? So even if you haven't ever bought an apartment building or thought about it, real estate is monopoly. It's literally the game of monopoly. The whole tax system is built for you to continue to roll up, right? So if you're thinking, where am I going to end up? What's my ending point? Realistically, you're probably going to end up in apartment buildings. And especially now that interest rates are as high as they are, property taxes are as high as they are, property values as high as they are, single family rentals that are profitable are very hard to find. Like in our area, if the property's worth more than 250 fixed up, it's hard to see it cash flowing if you have a mortgage on it, right? And so like to break that down, if you buy a single family home anywhere in Delaware County for let's say 300,000, taxes on that thing's probably 6 grand a year. So that's 500 bucks a month. Insurance is probably 1,500 bucks. That's another buck 50 a month. So you're 750. And then you have the mortgage payment at a 7% interest rate. And even if you're only financing 75% of that, that's 225 over 30 years. Your PITI is like almost 2,300, 2,400 a month. The rent's going to be about that, right? So it's not going to be profitable. There's a point that the profits fall off on single family homes. Now, if you're in Southern Delaware and the taxes are $1,000 a year and the insurance is nothing, okay, can you spend more? Sure. Um, but the rent also isn't going to be that high down there either, right? So I think now, since rates have been above, let's say 6% for consistently for the last probably 3 years at this point, almost 3 years, 2.5 years, anything that has a single family home that has an ARV of over 250, maybe 300, good luck finding a way for it to cash flow. If you don't own it cash, or if you don't own it with a large down payment, right? You're talking about a traditional 75% loan to value home in our area. You got to be on the lower end, um, or you have to start looking at multi-unit, right? That's where your mind starts to scale. Okay. So even if you think this is not where you plan on ending up, you probably will, at some point. All right. All right. So get into it. Who am I? Know me. I'm Will Holder. I run the William Holder Realty Team. I also the Grid DELCO chapter leader, and I run a Remax Classic out of St. David's. I run this group because I love investing in real estate. It's a passion of mine. That's why I became a realtor. It's why I started my team. It's everything I do is basically to make money to invest in real estate. So that's my retirement and accomplish with you guys, grow, build strong, good investors, eventually maybe invest with you guys someday, see where it goes, and I've actually met some people at this that have become agents on our team, and are going to invest in real estate. Like that's to me is awesome, because I'm surrounding myself with the people I want to be around, like they're coming to this, I probably want to be around them, right? Um, if you're a realtor and you're not thinking about your retirement, we're not going to see eye to eye because that's what investing in real estate is. Um, and how you can connect with me, Will at WilliamHolderRealty.com, my website, WilliamHolderRealty.com, Instagram, William Holder Realty Team, Facebook, William Holder Realty Team, anywhere. Um, yeah, pretty much anything's for my team. My personal Instagram and Facebook page, keep to family because my wife doesn't like that I post pictures of the kids on there, so I can't have any people I don't know, following me. I get it. I'm just a little less paranoid, but I understand. Uh, so just tell us a little bit about yourself. Start with you.
Hi, my name is Will. Uh, hopefully just uh, found.
Well, technically second, right?
I'm sorry.
So you had the Airbnb. Okay.
So
Yeah.
I property in the Poconos. Um, I- and
Perfect. Perfect.
Hi, I'm Teresa Ellerby. And this investing is job number two for me. Um, I love it.
Mhm.
But my husband and I claim that the idea of investing, we've been investing more or less.
Well, he's an accountant.
Yes, my husband is an accountant.
Yeah.
A penny matters
Yeah.
in all thoughts and processes, and I respect it. But
Mhm.
we are seeing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Have our first renovating a duplex. Super excited. Probably of it being finished. So I'm excited about that. But I'm already in give me a 4, 6
Mhm.
unit property. I'm two, this is my one duplex and I'm going for bigger. So I gotta talk to the accountant, so to speak.
Perfect. So you're a perfect example of what I said just now, which is, you can only do so much with single family burrs, even in Philly, because the taxes have gone up in Philly, right? Before maybe Philly would be an exception to that rule, but with where prices and taxes are in Philly now, it's like, uh, yeah. All right. And then Raj, did you want to give us a little intro about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, great. My name is Raj. Uh, I started investing in single properties about almost 10 years ago. By profession, I'm an electrical engineer. I use it as, passive income. Um, and my goal is to get into apartment complexes because I do believe that they have a better ROI than single properties. I want to learn how to have that capital so I can invest in apartment complexes. Um, that's pretty much it. And I'm 35 years old.
Awesome. Are you local?
Yes. Yep. I'm
Okay.
in Delaware County. All of my properties are in Upper Darby, single family. And I don't have
Okay.
duplexes. They're all just single units in a sense.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm local. Sorry, I couldn't attend in person. I don't get home until like 6 or something from work, and there's no way for me to drive to your location.
No, no, absolutely. That's why I did do Zoom. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. And we have Alan here, who we already got the story about you. So don't worry. You don't have to repeat yourself. Uh,
This all
yeah. Um, all right. So as always, don't sue me. I'm just doing this because I like you guys. All right. Uh, all right. So, and also it's recorded, so please don't say anything you don't want to be heard out there. Right. All right. Let's start with the pros and cons of buying apartments. Now, first, I'm going to do the stock presentation I have for you guys. Then I'm going to get into some personal things, experiences, buildings I've actually done, and I'll lead with this teaser, right? I'm going to show you how to stack two apartment buildings. What you do from that point on is fun. You get to decide, right? So you can sell it, buy more apartment buildings. Today, I had an opportunity where a insurance company that I've been referring business to for a long time reached out, and they're considering about selling their book of business. And I'm thinking, can I sell some properties and buy this? So now I'm calling my accountant. Like, stacking the capital is fun because it gives you the opportunity to do other things with it, not just real estate, right? Do I want to own an insurance company? It was something I thought about. So like it there's the whole world of that I've been looking into, but y- you buy real estate and you stack equity to give you the opportunity to do other things. It doesn't have to be real estate, right? So, not that insurance isn't real estate because insurance is still real estate, right? All right. So, pros and cons of buying apartment buildings. Number one, you can increase your income and stream and wealth faster by buying one large building instead of several single family homes. Now, like Raz just said, you're like, well, how do I afford it? You don't have to buy it here, right? That's thought process number one. You don't have to buy an apartment building here. I get it. They're expensive here. I saw an 11 unit for like 1.2 million in Lansdowne the other day, and I was like, oof. And the taxes were like $33,000. I'm like, oh my God. Only person buying that is someone that has a 1031 exchange they have to plant somewhere because that's the only way that's going to be profitable is you putting a large chunk down on that. You buying that with a 25% down mortgage, it's not cash flowing. I don't even have to do the numbers. I can tell you it's not going to work, right? So find somewhere else to buy properties, right? I buy properties. What's up, man? I buy properties out in Pittsburgh now, south of Pittsburgh. I've been out there for 2, 3 years. There's people, places all over the country, along the Bible Belt in the South, that you can find properties for way cheaper than we pay here, right? The appeal to down south is you don't have to worry about winter, right? Like that's the one thing that, I, I'm a little stubborn. I'm still only in Pennsylvania because I have a license in Pennsylvania. I feel like I have some control. I understand the market, but I have some bills in the winter that suck, like snow removal, if it's electric heat and I have a tenant not in there. I mean, I have buildings in Tamaqua where I'll have a tenant out for 2 months in the winter because I'm turning the unit over. And my electric bill is like $800 for a two-bedroom apartment in like a 600 square foot apartment, for electric heat. And that limits what I can charge in rents, right? Because I can't raise the rents if people are paying that much for electric. So there's pros and cons to up north versus down south. Up north appreciates faster, right? Down south doesn't, but you get the cash flow. So what's your game, right? Um, so you could buy one large building instead of buying several single family homes, right? And that's the truth. Or you could buy several single family homes and use them to buy one large building. We'll get into that. You can diversify your risk. All right. So this is where another thing, if you have a single family home and that tenant leaves, you're 100% vacant. If you have a 10 unit building and a tenant leaves, you're 10% vacant, right? It's just that's that's math. If you have a roof on 10 units and you have to replace it, you have 10 tenants pay for that roof. If you have a roof on a single family property, you only had one tenant to collect rent from, and chances are you didn't have enough in reserves to cover the roof unless you were running that thing perfectly. Okay. Um, you can massively increase the value of your asset by adding value and raising the rents. And this is where it starts to get really fun, especially if you're like analytical, you like numbers at all, once you start to understand how to play with cap rates and see what a little change can do, like if you have a 10 unit building and you're able to add $100 a month in income, that can raise the value of that building by like $30,000 if you play with the cap rates. Like that's where the little changes, and you're like, well, how do I raise it $100 a month? Well, it could be rent raises, it could be charging for parking, it could be I installed a laundry service. Like there's plenty of ways to add money without having to do a lot, you know. Um, so that's one of the big things. There can be massive tax advantages of buying apartments as well. And with the new uh big beautiful bill, um non unsurprisingly, real estate is going to do really well because of that bill. Like, you know, that's yeah. So cons of buying an apartment. It's harder to diversify your market exposure, right? And buy a lot of them due to costs, right? So yeah, you're buying three single families in a market versus buying a 10 unit in a market, the single family is going to be cheaper, right? They are. And you can plant them in different sections of that market so you're not too worried about one getting hit harder than the other. Um, your turnover rates and operating costs tend to be higher. And if your building's big enough, you might need staff. Property manager might not be enough. You might need a live-in person at the property. So, the cost of the asset is usually more expensive, which requires a higher down payment. And again, if you're buying things around here, just change your market and you could still have the same down payment. Um, and then 5+ units are financed with commercial loans, which means your interest rate is typically only locked for 5 to 10 years instead of 30 years like residential loans. And this is a huge factor right now. Right now, all those landlords that locked themselves into a 4% interest rate in 2020, 2021 are starting to panic because they're 5 years coming up on their 5/1 arm, and they didn't raise the rents enough because they were nice guys and they kept the rents down, or they didn't improve the building enough to justify higher rents, or whatever the situation was. And their lender is calling them and say, hey, just remember 12 months, you got to refinance this thing. Oh, no biggie. What's the payment going to be? What? Are you kidding? It's going to go up $2,000 a month, $3,000 a month based on my rate almost doubling. There's all my profit. Yeah. So, and I didn't add enough value to the property to make it worthwhile. So a lot of these landlords are going to be selling right now, right? You're going to see a lot of forced sales right now because they didn't plan for this, right? So regarding that con, plan for it. If you know you're on a 5/1 arm, assume in 5 years you're going to be paying a higher interest rate, and assume that uh, you need to get the rents up to cover that by that point. So what are you going to do to that building? Not just sit pretty on it. Like I have a building, very similar situation. We closed in 22, not 21. And I'm converting a commercial space into a residential space to cover the change in that rate. That'll bring me back to where I was before, right? But I have to put $30,000 into it to do that. But I'm going to be able to cash out refinance at least that $30,000, probably more because of the cap rate increase I've brought into it. So play with the numbers as much as possible. But apartment buildings are math. Like it's just one big math equation. It's like how good do you get with it? All right. Nah, it wasn't renting at all. This is a building in Pottstown, and it's a 10 unit building, but it's three separate residential buildings that were converted to 10 units on the same lot over time. And this commercial space is basically on a residential corner. So like, and the Pottstown is kind of a nightmare to work with. They're very picky with what they want anywhere. So the amount of businesses have had to apply for it and get turned down because they're like, that won't work there. That won't work there. So now I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna spend the money and convert it. Um, and they're gonna give me a hard time about that too, but it is what it is. Uh, so 2 to 4 unit multifamily. So understand this, anything 4 units and below is considered residential. Unless one of those units is a commercial space, then it's a mixed use or commercial space, right? If you're looking at 4 units, and this is something we were talking about recently, like you can go up to 4 units with an FHA loan. Like, and around here, I think the limit's close to $900,000 for 4 units in FHA. So you can get a pretty nice 4 unit building in parts of Delco with FHA. Now your payment's going to be high, but if you're house hacking or anything like that, it's a great deal. Good way to get started. Get a turnkey 4 unit, 3 unit, or duplex, right? So these are great ways to learn the game while taking advantage of residential 30-year loans. Many people house hack their way into a multifamily by buying a duplex, triplex, or quad and living in one of the units. And if I had to reset my life, that's how I would have started. Like I would have done a house hack for a 4 unit, and then I would have bought a 2 unit with 5% down a year later and move into that. And then I would have done a flip before I bought the house I want to live in. And then I would have started investing in actual real estate and doing burrs. Like I could write the book on how to, and actually the book has been written now. I think Brandon or not Brandon, David David Green, the other guy from Bigger Pockets, wrote the book on like being a rental, and in there's a chapter in there now that like if I had to start over, this is how I would have started, and it's that, because he's a realtor too, so he understands. Like if you're, yeah, I think we have a question in the chat. Burr, yep. We cover burrs on these as well, Raj, but yeah, for sure. Burr, so you do a flip and then you buy your own home and you burr from there. And at that point, the positive is you have basically you can have up to 6 units with 8.5% down, right? Because you do a 3.5% FHA on the first one and you do a 5% conventional on the second one. You're 8.5% down to own 6 units, right? Which is the hack there. Then you start going into your burrs, right? 5+ unit or multifamily buildings require a commercial loan. You'll need to put at least 20% down when purchasing a multifamily property, but sometimes even more, right? A lot of these lenders, especially commercial lenders, are clamming up right now and they want 30, 35, sometimes 40% equity. So, and I'm okay with that because it's better for you. Like they're kind of forcing you to be a better investor and have more equity and play it safer. But the days of them lending 80% on these properties I think, are way in the past. A lot of those lenders out of business. So, expect to be leaving a decent chunk in there or to be burning out at a significantly lower LTV right now. Your real estate asset is your business. Your job is to create value in that business by minimizing expenses, fixing it up, and increasing rents. If you simplify it to that alone, that's it, right? You have to fix it up. You can't just let it fall apart. I don't care how far my properties are. I'm walking them at least once a year, right? Ideally twice. And with my property manager or without them, if they can't meet me, I'll send them videos, and I'm like, hey man, this has clearly been leaking for a while. And if you look on the backside of this wall now, there's mold being caused. Like if this had just kept going on, where would it end up, right? They're not there checking the vines and doing all the nitty-gritty stuff. You have to be. You have to be that anal about it. So if you're a good building operator, show up to your buildings, walk them once to twice a year, and just make sure they're not falling apart. All right, so there's a few things when it comes to numbers to understand. The net income of the asset drives the value of the property. Your job as the operator is to increase the net income, right? But just like any business, and like I say this about real estate teams, people think like you run a team, you're making so much money. It's about the net. All these teams are out there. Oh, we sell 70 million, 150 million. Well, what's your profit margin, right? Because I was a more profitable agent as an individual agent than as a team with 15 agents. My profit margin was bigger as an individual agent. At a certain point, that tips, but There's teams out there that have 20 agents and they're selling $100 million and their profit margin is like 8%, and you're like, well, just go back to be a single agent. It's the same thing with the building. If your net income is very low, it really doesn't matter how much the building's worth or how much it's making if you're not making any money. Right. So how to calculate your cap rate. And now cap rates are a fun number that banks use, but they don't tell the full story of a building. You're using it to predict your value, but don't use it to figure out everything about your property, right? Because your cap rate doesn't truly tell the story about what that property is making, right? Reason being, your cap rate is your gross income, right? Minus your taxes, your maintenance, and your insurance, which gives you your net income. Your net income divided by your purchase price is your cap rate. So if you're buying a property for $95,000, net income's 24 grand, well, there's a 25% profit margin or a 25% cap rate. Um, there's a 25% cap rate. Great. What's the mortgage payment going to be on it? You haven't even seen that yet, right? So you haven't figured out the mortgage payment. Also, landlords lie all the time about their expenses to make their cap rate look better. So make sure you're diving into the actual expenses. Don't go on a surface level of what they say on the offering memorandum or wherever, whatever the broker's giving you or the landlord's giving you. I'm usually overestimating water and sewer. They're downplaying it, I promise you. I'm usually overestimating electric. They're downplaying it. All the expenses they're downplaying. I'm using my numbers for insurance, not theirs, because insurance now is very different than what people were getting 20 years ago. And some of those old policies, right? I'm using a higher number uh for property management that they're using. Sorry. My our CRM rings in my phone, my computer and my phone, so it's just ringing in my ear. Uh, okay. All right. So, um, cap rates are important because they give you a snapshot of the market. But I'll give you an example. Like around here in this area, if you're getting like more than 7% cap rate's a great deal, right? In this area. If you're in University City, 6.5, great deal, right? If you're in LA or Center City, Philadelphia, 5%, great deal, right? Those are really strong assets. You're not too worried about the the yield because the property is going to appreciate. So that cap rate's going to be low, and you take that with a great property. If you're investing in a tougher area, B, C, or D market, you want to see higher cap rates. You also don't want to see 25%. If it's 25%, that's probably a market you want to avoid. Like for me, if it's over even like 15%, I'm like, what's going on here? Like that's too good, right? That's too good of a return. And usually if it's too good to be true, it is, right? So if you have a, a property you look at and they're saying 25%, my first thing is I don't think that agent knows what they're talking about. One, two, I want to check all the expenses to really dive in because it's probably more like 17%. And even there, I'm like, yeah, what's the crime rate here? Like, it's probably really high, right? It's probably a tough area. And, like, is it, so pay attention. Not when you see a high cap rate, it's not always a good thing. There's a bad part to that too. All right. So cap rates and income level. Understand, a $400,000 property, an 8% cap rate basically means that $400,000 property is making you 32 grand a year, 88% return, right? And that's what you're trying to figure out. How much am I, what's my return on my investment here, right? Um, all right. Now, example of how to find the cap rate. You have your gross income minus property management. And again, I know it's cute to use the 10% property management, but please remember, realistically, your property management's more like 18% because you're probably paying the property manager a full month's rent almost every year to turn that tenant over. So if you average that out over 12 months, it's more like 18%. All right. So property management's more like 18% if you have a property manager. Maintenance, they're using 450 maintenance there, which what's that math wise? 450 of 9 grand is what? Not 3%. I don't even know what percentage that is that are using, but it seems low. Taxes and insurance, right? So your gross income minus all those things equals your net income divided by your purchase price gives you your cap rate of 15.7%. Cap rates plus income level. Use the cap rate to justify the income level of the investment property. If you know the cap rate of the area, you can figure out what the income level should be. You can determine this by running the comps in any given area. It's really a little hard to find um, consistent data on what cap rates should be because every building is kind of different. Like there's only a few very similar buildings. Even Philadelphia, like you go in like a certain zip code, there's only a few buildings that are almost footprints of each other, like or identical of each other. A lot of them, there's a first floor that can be used for a salon, and then there's like 6 units above it. But then another one over that first floor can only be used for like a restaurant. So you have to pay attention to where um, like what that plays into with the cap rate and understanding the building itself. So it's not as easy as, oh, cap rates in University City need to be 6.5%. Well, depends, right? All right. So for example, if we bought a property for 400,000 in an area where the most similar properties have an 8% cap rate, we might find our recommended level income by multiplying the 400,000 by 8%, which gives you $32,000 annually. This represents the amount of net income the property would need to generate per year to get an 8% cap rate, right? However, keep in mind that you cannot set rental rates based on the cap rate. They must be based on market rates and consider how this rental would compare to other rentals in the area. So again, if you want to do really quick math and you're like, hey, there's a $400,000 property selling at 8% cap rate, which means it's making 32 grand a year. What's my PITI on that? Right. And it might be like, this isn't even a good deal. On to the next one. Right. So you can back into the numbers the other way as well. Figure out principal, interest, taxes, insurance, add them together, multiply that by 12. It might be 32 grand a year. So it's a wash. All right. Figure out the baseline for a given area. When you are analyzing deals in different markets, you need to understand a baseline for typical costs in that market. An apartment building in Florida will have very different expenses compared to those in Minnesota. Weather, temperature, all those things, right? Your job is to figure out the baseline so you can understand what is common in any given market. Common, but not always, right? Just giving you a range, right? And understanding that market, understanding the range is what will help you just easier evaluate properties. If you see a property pop up in that neighborhood and it's a 6 cap, but it's a 9 cap neighborhood, like, it might not be a good deal. All right, when reviewing the numbers, ask for historical operating data. It's a lot of um, a lot of investors will ask for what's called a T12. It's like a trailing 12 months of income, expenses. They want to see what the last 12 months look like for the landlord. Most commercial lenders know what this is, or realtors, brokers know what this is, and they have it ready for you because they know people are going to ask for it. Um, it, do you trust it? You know, but it's at least you doing a little bit more homework before you go invest a bunch of money into a building. All right. You want to break down the utility costs, not just the subtotal, right? This way you could see if there's a potential issue or inefficiency with one of those utility services. I'll tell you right now, like the utility costs generally knock out half the buildings I'm evaluating. Like I'll pull up a building and it'll look like it's a great deal. And then their electric bill is $24,000 a year. And I'm like, no, like next. How do you fix that? I mean, if it's electric heat and it's in a certain area, how do you fix that? Like most of these areas don't have natural gas yet, so it's like I can't make huge changes there. So if I know this landlord is paying the electric bill for his tenants to make the building rentable, me coming in there and putting it on the tenant isn't going to help. I'm going to have a high vacancy rate. So pay attention to those things. Um, if they're it's in an area that's super cold and there's no snow or like ice removal charges, the landlord's probably doing it himself. You're not going to be doing that, right? And it's very expensive to have people shovel and salt a building in a snowy area for a month. It could be, I remember one month on like we had 7 buildings in Carbon County, and one month I got a $4,000 bill for salt and shoveling for those 7 buildings, and I was like, what? Like, at what point? So I called the guy. I'm like, at what point were you going to call me and say, hey, this bill's getting crazy? Like never. He was just going to let it keep racking up, right? Yeah. So you have to understand those things. All right. So how to get started? Pick an area and understand its growth potential. Again, why did I pick south of Pittsburgh? What just happened? Nippon Steel just bought US Steel, right? There's potential there. AI is moving into Pittsburgh. Like I was paying attention to an area in our state that was getting a lot of attention, and that was Pittsburgh. First universities came in and made the area really nice, and then you started hearing all this stuff about these tech companies moving out there, and I'm like, okay. And now that there's desire for nicer housing and people with higher income there, all of a sudden companies are coming back, right? So I'm trying to buy way more now there. I'm like, I got to get more soon because, a surge is coming and it'll eventually catch up to me. But pay attention to like, try to find an area that there's a trend. I just saw some article that in Mississippi, they're putting in some tax law for people that start to want to invest more in that state. So, like, start looking for things like that. Do your homework and pick an area that you think you can get ahead of the trend. Even if you're not ahead of it, but you're in there, early enough, Um, uh, understand or research the jobs and income levels and population growth, right? Understand the cap rates of a given area or of a given area by reviewing the comps and analyzing a number of projects. So again, just like you would with a single family home, right? You can search for properties online using the MLS. You can use LoopNet. You can use CoStar. There's also a great site called Crexy. There's another site called City Feet. There's a way more commercial sites available coming up out there that you can use to find deals. And in the commercial world, it's really, really a big thing that commercial brokers like to double end their deals. So they keep a lot of them in their pocket. So connect with brokers, right? If there's a broker that you see their sign all over that market, call them, and get on their list because they're going to call you before they ever list that property, right? They're trying to sell it. That's just how the commercial world is. Line up the money, understand where you're getting your money from, self-directed IRA, partners, 401k, savings, equity lines, banks, syndication. Syndication is one of those things that was scary for me for a long time because I don't believe in doing something unless I've done it before. And a lot of people were like, well, I'm going to buy apartment buildings. I'm just going to go syndicate, right? And that means they're taking a bunch of people's money and they're going to do something they've never done before. And so be really, really careful. There's now, I think, rating systems for syndications. So you can go on, if you have someone that's pitching you a syndication, you can go on and see if they have a higher rating or a bad rating, kind of like a credit score for that syndicator, right? Because there's been a lot of guys who do a lot of shady stuff. Like, have you heard there was this guy in Houston who did like a couple hundred units and just became this massive slumlord problem, lost all the money from the syndicators. Like it was just there's crazy stories like that you hear, and they're real. And just be careful. And if you want to be a syndicator, be careful. You're handling people's money, so just do it right. Make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. But I'll say this, like I like very small versions of a syndication. Like everything I own is with friends or family. I'll own a building with a couple buddies or like one buddy. That's a mini syndication. It's us pooling our money, and they're usually kind of relying on me to run the show anyway because I'm the one in the real estate. So that's a syndication. It's just I think a certain number of people investing, you have to get official about it because the SEC and whatever. Yeah, so hire a broker that specializes in multifamily and consult with him and or her on whatever you are looking for. Call property managers and put the word out that you're a buyer. Tell everybody. Find contractors. Build a dream team, just like you do with a BRRRR, just like you do with a flip. It's the same thing. You're just finding a different target audience, right? Drive for dollars, target your area, send out letters, research absentee landlords in your area, send letters, make offers, analyze these deals, secure the property with a feasibility study, and close. A few things about this. Number one, the whole thing about it used to be let's find all these tired landlords and let's get the property at a cheaper price, raise the rents, etc. There has to be a balance with that now because a lot of these super old buildings, the amount of money you're going to put into them to get them to even be in the realm of a feasible apartment building, you're better off just buying a newer apartment building, right? So, because these buildings are so big and so outdated, and some of them have asbestos, and some of them have these crazy systems. So, do your due diligence on do I want to get into a super old building that's cheaper versus paying a little bit more for one that's newer just because of the systems alone. What you're going to go through to get that 1950s or 60s built apartment building to today's standards, put in sprinkler systems, like new codes have changed. That landlord's been grandfathered in forever, and now that he's selling it, he's losing that, and you now have to put a sprinkler system in, and it's going to cost you so much money. Like a 3 unit sprinkler system is like $40,000 or something. It's crazy. So imagine what a 10 unit building is or a 20 unit building, right? So check all of those things because you're better off just buying the building that had the sprinkler systems, right? Um, so understand that. Also, the one really, really cool thing about and so you guys were talking about scaling up. If you have 5 single family homes, you have $50,000 in income in each of them, approximately. That's 250 grand. You need to buy something of equal or greater value with that money, right, to do a 1031 exchange. However, let's say you have these 5 single family homes and they're not making you that much money, and you find and you have 50,000 equity in all of them. So let's say combined they're worth $600,000, right? Let's say you find a building for 450, right? And you want to take your 250 of equity and put it into that 450 building, and now only have a loan for $200,000. It's not a perfect 1031 because you didn't go with equal or greater value. But what you can do is you can do a when you buy the new building, you could do what's the study? Cost segregation study that first year and write down the difference. So even if you didn't buy a building of equal or greater value, if you do a cost segregation study right after your 1031 exchange, you could still break even, right? And not have to pay the government. right? So it's something I'm doing right now. I'm actually selling a $2 million package. I'm going to buy a $1 million building. I'm going to do a cost segregation study year one. And that booted amount that I would normally pay taxes on is going to get wiped out, right? So get creative. You can go from, I'm going to take a 25 unit package to a 9 unit building and make more money, right? Because I'm putting a lot more down and I have a lot more to work with. And when I fix this 9 unit up, I'm going to have a ton of equity to play with, right? So you don't have to always go up. You can go down by getting creative with what you do with the money and how you play the tax rules. All right. So you purchased an apartment building. Now what? Understand you have to stabilize the property. Usually, if you're working outside of your market, you're working with a property manager, right? Pick the right property manager. Pick the right property manager. It'll crush you if you don't pick the right property manager. I've had both experiences. I picked the right ones, I picked the wrong ones. The wrong ones will cost you years and years and years of heartache. And uh, you should, if your property manager is not willing to at least have one meeting with you monthly, it's not the right property manager, right? If they're like, oh no, I'm too busy for that. Okay, keep going. I got other people I'll talk to. They have to be willing to meet with you monthly, go over vacancies, go over their plan for the building, give you a realistic breakdown of what they're going to be doing with your building. If they're just like, nah, let me handle it, I got it. No, no, you don't. I know you don't. You that might have worked for you in the past. Probably not great. I'm telling you, you need a property manager that's willing to meet with you at least once a month. When you're getting it up and running, more than that, right? Because when you're turning these tenants over, when you're coming up with a plan to turn the building over, if your property manager is heavily involved, which they should be, it's going to be more than once a month. But once it's stabilized, once a month, like they should be willing to have a half hour Zoom with you. You're not asking them to show up there for 5 hours. Um, so stabilizing your property is heavily contingent on your property manager and who you hire. Um, Add value by updating the units that turn. Again, don't go crazy. If you're taking a building in a C or D level market, don't put A level finishes in it. It's not going to change much for you. Your rent's going to go up a little bit, but not what you put into that, right? Um, but also you're trying to not be the slumlord. You're trying to bring things up. So don't just polish the floors. Like maybe refinish them. Maybe put down laminate, right? Don't, you know, uh, yeah, don't rip out the bathroom, but maybe glaze it, right? Don't just clean it. Get to a level that you want your next level of tenants to be at, so that when it turns again, you can go to the next level, right? Incremental step ups. Don't try to jump up unless you have a ton of money you're working with and a ton of time. Don't try to take a D level building to a B or A. It's just not going to happen right away. That takes decades sometimes, right? Um, Improve the curb appeal of the property and change the tenant profile. This is huge. If tenants roll up to a crappy looking building and they're like gung ho about it, how do you think they're going to take care of their unit, right? So if you're putting out there that I am running a crappy building, you're going to get crappy tenants, right? That's just, it is what it is. So have the property have curb appeal, add an awning, paint the building, like put some plants out front, do the simple things that you would do if you were listing one of your flips, right? It's the same thing. You're trying to attract the right people. Put security systems on the doors, put cameras up, uh, have like fingerprint coded door entry. People want to see that people care about who comes and goes in this building, right? Um, that all of these little things matter to the tenant profile. And for you to change your tenant profile, you can't just buy a crappy building and say, I want better tenants. You have to buy the crappy building and make it that a building that better tenants will want, right? Raise rents. Yes. The whole point of buying the building was to increase the income. You didn't buy it because it was maxed out, right? So whatever people call me, like, oh, my landlord just sold my building. I'm like, all right, expect your rent to go up. And they're like, no, pro they're gonna raise the rent. It's like when a company sells and people are like, oh, they said everyone's gonna keep their jobs. No, they're not. Right? That's just the reality. They bought that business, and the only way to improve the profit margin is to remove expenses. You're an expense, right? That's reality. So if your business gets sold, in fact, some people are going to lose their jobs. And they'll find creative ways to do it. I bet you they'll say, oh, we're actually looking to lower your salary this year because things are so expensive, right? We've all been there. And that's them just trying to lower expenses to make the margins work because they just overpaid for this business. If your landlord sells his building, your rents are going to go up. The rents worked at the market rate he bought it at, not at the rate the new guy bought it at, right? Um, Analyze the new cap rate. Do this monthly. Even if your building is stabilized, do this monthly. Every month after you get your rents in and you do your expenses, make sure your cap rate is stable and growing. Don't try to do it quarterly or every 6 months. Do it monthly, right? Uh, Burr or sell. You have to decide every year. You have to decide if you're holding that property or selling it every year. When you have an apartment building, are you holding it or are you selling it? Is this property making money or losing money? Can I make more money somewhere else, or do I continue to keep owning this property? Every year when you do your evaluation of your property, is this property worth keeping or do I sell it? That's a decision you have to make every year, right? Remember, just like when you buy a new construction home, when you buy this property, you put X amount of dollars into it, that starts to depreciate right away, right? So, and those assets, those things like the roof, the windows, the furnace, they start to get old right away. So if you're year 7, year 8, and you're thinking, well, I've paid down the mortgage a little bit, guess what? Some big expenses are coming. And it could be you that pays for it or the other guy. You choose, right? All right. So this was the actual presentation. There's a few things I want to go into with you guys on some deals, that some things I've seen recently that I wanted to show you. But while I'm pulling that up, anyone have any questions?
Because I want um, I don't know. So for my girlfriend, this I want the buyer. You know, I
You will, man. You will, because you'll be constantly thinking about it. Once you like get that taste of this working, it's really, really hard to stop doing it. It's like you're like, what did I just do? I was told it was this hard to do this, and I just did it, and I made how much in equity? And your first burr, and you leave no money in the deal, and you're like, I just bought a property for nothing. What? My mom always told me, I needed 25% down, and no, like you start to do it, and you're like, oh, this gets easier and easier, and mentally, right? It gets easier. Um, and then you start to see it stack, and you're like, oh, I have two burrs, and wait, I have $80,000 in equity. My net worth just went up 80 grand, and I left nothing into both of these deals. I can't wait to do the next one, right? So just a couple things I brought up. Number one, City Feet is a commercial website. LoopNet is another one. Crexy is another one. These are three of the biggest ones people use. Um, what was the other one I brought up? Obviously, the MLS if you have access to it. But these are the three. If I'm looking for commercial properties, I'm usually searching between. If you don't have access to the MLS, I do. Oh yeah, Rod. Uh, I'll introduce you guys. Raj wants to see everyone in the room. So, uh, all right. So these three sites for searching. Then a building I want to show you guys. We just listed this in Pennsburg, which is like Montgomery County. And one of the agents on my team listed this. It's a 7 unit for nine. He's listed it for 950. And it's just like seven. It's kind of a weird property. It's split up. Interestingly, the owner actually lives in one of the units. I'm just gonna go through these fast with you because I want to show you like how you monetize a building like this, right? So, you can see some of the units need some love, but it's not falling apart. It's in good shape. Um, Interesting looking building, right? So when we were evaluating this one, we put in the price the seller wanted. We broke down the units so you could see we have there's some 2 beds, a 1 bed, a studio, a 3 bed, a 3 bed, a 1 bed, and then a 4 bed that the owner lives in. And the current rents they're getting on them. And when I did the market rents, I did Section 8 because I was like, what's the best case scenario here? Right. And that chances are you're not going to get this, right? But it's like, what's the best case scenario here? Also, they had laundry that they get laundry on. So the things you want to look at are your annual property taxes and confirming there's no reevaluation of the taxes coming up or anything like that. Insurance monthly, right? I want to look at the insurance on a monthly basis, and I'm using my number, not theirs. I called and I figured it out. Uh, electric and gas, electric and gas was very low because in this building, all the tenants pay their own electric and gas. But the landlord paid water and sewer, so that was pretty high. And actually, this number was higher than they told us, so it was an overestimation. Garbage, snow removal, property management. Again, we're selling this building, so I put 10%. If I was buying it, I would put 18 to figure out my numbers. 5% vacancy, 5% maintenance, 25% down at 7% with a 25-year loan. Some estimations, right? So as it stands, that landlord's getting 5,700 a month in rents. If you figure all of his expenses, property management, property taxes, insurance, owner paid utilities, which is very high, right? You look at that number and you're like, how do I shrink that, right? Um, Vacancy reserves and maintenance reserves, he's paying $3,100 in operating expenses. So his monthly NOI is 2,571. Annualized, it's almost $31,000. $31,000 divided by $950,000 is 3.25%. It's a very low cap rate, right? Even for Center City, Philadelphia, that's low, right? The reason that works for this guy is because he lives there and there's no mortgage on it, right? So he's living pretty good. Life's okay. He's making uh 30 grand a year to live there, right? That's good. Uh Now if you ran a mortgage, 950 with 25% down, and you figure some closing costs, your monthly mortgage payment's 5 grand a month. So you're actually losing $2,400 a month. So it's a negative return on investment if you have a mortgage on it. Now, down below, you look at what stabilized it should be. It'll make 11 grand a month. You minus all your expenses. Now you have a cap rate of 9.54% at its current value at 950, right? And when you figure out after you remove your mortgage payment, you're making your 30 grand again, right? So can you buy this building and make it profitable and make a decent return on it? Yes. But you have to be able to raise those rents all the way up, right? So to figure out if this would work, what's that? Yeah, yeah. And again, he's been It's been the same tenants for years and years, tired, they just want people they like living there because they're living there. I get it. They make concessions, but as a building operator, it doesn't work for you, right? Few things, other things to look at when you're evaluating a building. You have to look at your debt pay down, so how much are you paying down your debt every year, right? You have to look at depreciation, figure out how much you can depreciate the asset. And if you do a cost segregation, you're chunking a bunch of that in the front, so you don't get as much each year after that. Um, you have to look at your debt coverage ratio. So this is really important right here because banks won't do a loan on a property unless it's a 1.25% debt service coverage ratio. So as it stands, this building's almost unfinanceable. It pretty much is unfinanceable, right? Like a lender is going to look at this and be like, "What? No, like if you default, I can't support it. I'm going to lose money." Right? So, but on the back end, when it's fully stabilized, it's very financeable, right? So you're that's another number to pay attention to and an important number because if you're evaluating a deal, even on the front end and you're looking for financing and you're like, oh, this could be great on the back end, but on the front end, that's your DSCR. You can't even finance it, right? Um, you can look at what your gain on that property and how much it'll appreciate. And this is big, right? If you pay attention if you're using like a 3.5% assumed appreciation in 5 years, this building could be worth 1.2, 1.12, right? Uh, so that's something to pay attention to. And your cash flow. So if you look at market rents year over year, if you raise your rents 3.5% in 20 years, your rents roll should double there, right? So these are all things you factor when you're trying to figure out if this building is worth it for me, right? Like, what's my play? Am I looking to cash in now, or am I cool with planting a seed and in 20 years, this thing's just bringing it in? Um, so all of this is important when looking at a deal, and this is one I recently evaluated, which I figured it'd be a good case study for you guys to look at. But usually, usually before you even get to here. Like once you fill this in and this in, it's usually a hard no. Like you start to see, oh, it's a negative cap at the current rents, and then I put in new rents and I throw in the new market value, and it's still a negative cap. You're like, all right, no deal here. It's not even worth me going much further. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you guys. We talked about using capital for other buildings to roll into bigger buildings or other investments. And um also, yeah, and other investments, which you talked about. So again, you don't have to jump to apartment building. You can take all the buildings you start a bunch, bump them together, go buy an apartment building, right? Or you could buy apartments somewhere else cheaper, right? But you should be thinking this is where I'm going to end up, right? So I'm going to end up here anyway. Let me start planning from now how I'm going to end up. And it might not be a 20-unit building. You might buy a 3-unit, a 4-unit, a 2-unit, a 7-unit. That's still, I lost count, but that's still like 13 units, right? You can eventually clump them and go buy 20 units in one place, right? So don't downplay the small stuff because profit's usually there sometimes. All right. That's it for the presentation. Raj, thanks for coming on the Zoom. And hope to see you soon on some of these other ones, man. And reach out. You have my contact info. Reach out.